Hey, thanks for joining us for this chat, and thanks for all of our panelists. As you can tell from the early bumps, this is the first time that we've done a panel like this, where it's just gallery style, and we're gonna have an open conversation. Most often, given that we're an enterprise company selling to enterprises, most of our webinars are very much scripted and one-to-many presentations, but I'm looking forward to this more free-form approach. The goal today is, one, to give everyone at least a little bit more social contact in these times. And then two, more importantly, or of equal importance, to share actually tips and tricks that each of you have on how you can approach modeling while remote from your colleagues and remote from your workspaces in a way that's most productive. So we appreciate everyone joining this talk today. And the way that we've structured it is we'll do quick introductions around the horn so you have a sense of who's talking when. Then we'll do round robin style questions where we'll thematically be asking a few big ticket questions and ask multiple people to respond to them at the same time and building on each other's answers, as well as contrasting at times. Maybe we'll have a little bit of debate, but maybe not. And then go through quick lightning session questions just to answer them rapid fire. And then we'll save some time at the end for Q&A. Though I know we're already into it a little bit, so I'll jump right in. If you have questions in the meantime, anyone who's attending, you can chat them directly at me, and I'll triage. I'll actually try to bring them up in the course of our conversation so that I'm guessing that the question will be highly relevant to what we're discussing at the time. So I'll try to bring it up immediately. If I miss it, we'll get to it at the end. And if we miss that at the end, then we'll be sure to share responses to everyone after the fact through email. So thanks for attending though, and let's jump right in. So to kick it off, what I love is for us to just quickly go around the horn. I want to get quick basics. So which company do you work for? What does your company do? What is your role there? And especially in terms of like how you're thinking about how you actually approach modeling there in that context. The second area to touch on for introductions is your favorite modeling problem, favorite library, favorite modeling tasks to approach, and give everyone a gist of like the types of models you're typically working with. And then just really quickly, whether working remotely is standard for you or this is new, relatively recently, related to COVID-19. So positioned on my screen, this is, why don't we start with you, Rajan?
Sure. Hey guys, I'm Rajan. I'm a solution architect manager at NVIDIA. NVIDIA, you guys might know from GPUs. NVIDIA is an AI computing company. We're known worldwide for our GPUs that enable graphics, AI, machine learning, deep learning. I run a team of very talented data scientists and solution architects who are focused mostly working with our partners in consumer internet space. And my day is spent creating models with my team using NVIDIA tools for deep learning, machine learning, understanding our customer use cases. And I've been at NVIDIA for about 4 years in different roles. As far as my favorite library, we have a new framework, been out for some time now, called Rapids.ai for accelerating machine learning workflows. And as far as working remotely, I would say I'm comparatively new to it.
Jennifer, how about you next?
Yeah, sounds good. So yeah, my name is Jennifer. So I'm the founder and CEO of a tiny company that I believe most people haven't heard about called Alectio. So we're the first company to actually help people curate their data automatically. And the value proposition is really that in any data set you're going to collect, there's only a fraction of the data that is truly impactful to your model. And if you know which part it is, you will build models faster for less money. And you're also going to get rid of the noise that actually making your model worse, right? So we're actually, I would say like a theoretical machine learning company in the sense that we work on all kinds of problems, and the technology that we're building is just like what you guys are SigOpt are building. Like it's supposed to be general. So we work on computer vision use cases. We work on NLP use cases, and pretty much you name it. Like we've done things with time series, etc., etc. So it's, I mean, it's obviously a very interesting problem to work on, but it's also a very compute heavy kind of problem to work on, because like helping other reduce the amount of data actually like pushes the burden of understanding the data or large volumes of data onto us. So that actually has like raised a lot of issues for us, which we can talk about later, obviously. And so you were asking like favorite libraries and stuff. I mean, we work really with all types of different libraries. In fact, we have our own as well, which is like a combination of things that we need specifically for the type of machine learning that we're doing. I will tell you this though, like I can tell you which one is my least favorite, or any of my employees' least favorite. Basically, we've made it the criteria not to hire anybody who promotes Keras. And you have bonus points if you claim that PyTorch is the best framework out there. So.
Shots fired. Yuri, why don't you go next and make sure, am I pronouncing your name correctly, Yuri?
Uri, but that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a weird Catalan name.
Uri. Yeah, sorry, I'll get it right next time. Why don't you go next, and feel free to debate the merits of those libraries, as Jennifer was mentioning. I'm just kidding.
Cool, yeah, so my name is Uri, or Oriol, and I'm a staff scientist at Pandora, the music streaming service. And what I do is to mostly focus on the music recommendations. I try to improve them. I use a lot of content-based approaches using deep learning. The libraries that I've been using the most are probably TensorFlow. I've been using Keras when it started. I actually really liked it. That was before PyTorch.
It comes from my employee more than from me, so I have to follow the public trends, right?
I must say the documentation is kind of a mess right now with the TensorFlow with everything. But in any case, I've been lately using PyTorch and I really like it. So yeah. I've also been using lately weights and biases as a framework to store all of the experiments that I run and to keep track of the parameters and stuff like that. And then finally, I used to work from home every Friday. Now I work from home every day, which is a big change, but it still is. I'm slightly adjusted to this. Yeah.
Cool. All right, Maria, you're up next.
Hi, I'm Maria, and I work at Yelp. I'm a group tech lead in the content group there. Yelp is a business working as a local search engine, connecting people with local businesses. So we're doing a lot of ML work on recommendations, search ranking, a lot of NLP for query understanding, advertising, and in my team, we're doing a lot of work with like understanding content, image classification, text mining, etc. We're also using TensorFlow, Keras. We're using XGBoost and a lot of custom stuff that we've built, like especially on the search ranking side, like a lot of ranking stuff we've built in-house. When it comes to remote, I've actually been a remote engineer for 3.5 years now. I've not been working from home there. That's new to me. I was renting out an office, so there are some new challenges I have to like figure out right now. But there's parts that I'm very used to for a while.
You'll be the expert in the room in this one. Last but not least, Toby.
Hey, my name is Toby. I'm a machine learning engineer at SigOpt, where we do optimization of models. I would say that my favorite modeling problems are around time series analysis and dynamical systems. So probably my favorite library is more along the lines of NumPy, because you don't have that great abilities to do dynamical systems in either PyTorch or Keras. So I would probably go with NumPy. And I have spent a lot of time working remote. I really enjoy going along climbing trips and surfing trips. So I usually work from the mountains or the beach. So I'm pretty accustomed to this.
That's awesome. Thanks for the intros, everyone. So I think in light of time, we're probably going to end up killing that lightning session that I mentioned at the beginning. So let's dive in on the round robin, though. I'm going to combine the first two areas that we plan to talk about into one. And I'd love to hear, Maria, you kick us off on this front, just because sounds like you, along with Toby, have been modeling remotely for a long time. I'd love to hear day in the life and in equal strokes, like your approach to collaboration and communication generally while you're along with that day in the life, kind of like your ideal day, the ways that you spend it, as well as like how you approach communication with your team, with your collaborators, with your managers, and how that interaction looks, including some of the tooling that you're using.
Cool. So typical day is I'm actually like 3 hours ahead of, I'm living in Philly. So I actually have the morning that's very convenient in a way, because I have the morning as like focus and research time from like 10 to 1 when people actually like 10 there come to the office. Usually I can like focus on like actually do some research, write down some thoughts and documents. And then typically my day is at least half meetings. So there's a lot of communication, usually through Slack or Lifesize, that like another like VC product essentially. Mm-hmm. When it comes to communication, that was initially a challenge. I started like isolating myself a lot when I started being remote, because a lot of things like happen because you run into someone on like in the building, and just a lot of things happen more random. So I started being more proactive, checking in with people, asking folks to have like virtual chats so that we can, in the same way you'd go for a coffee, like for 10 minutes, just have like a virtual coffee so I can keep in touch with folks. In communication, another challenge I had in meetings was to find my space to be able to express myself and not feeling like I'm talking over people, but also like still get a chance to talk when everyone was there. I'm not sure this is very relevant because everyone's remote right now, but like not feeling shy, that there are always like problems with like bad connections and like delays. So just everyone understanding each other and understanding that sometimes you might talk over someone, and just like apologizing, making sure that that won't hold you back from talking. That figuring out that balance was challenging. But just, I figured if I apologize from scratch that, hey, I'm not trying to talk over you, it's a sound delay that I just don't know you were starting to talk, and excuse me when that happens, and I'll still try to talk whenever I want to say something. And also making sure with all my co-workers that in the same way someone would just come by my desk and say, hey, can I grab you for a question? Like literally, you see me online, like I'm putting myself in a meeting if I'm in a meeting, and then everyone can just call me whenever they want on Slack, like directly VC. I mean, that might be intrusive from some people. I'm not saying that this is the way to go with everyone, but whenever I put myself online and I'm not in a meeting, essentially I'm available for anyone who wants to do like a quick video call for questions. And share screening as well, like on the modeling side helps a lot, like just in the same screen and talking over like iterations.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Brody, is that the same experience that you've had? Have you had kind of growing pains, kind of like ramping into full week, or have you been able to replicate what you were doing on Fridays and just carry that through the week? Have you found similar, you landed in a similar spot and utilizing some of the same things as Maria, or has it been more painful for you to get there?
I think it's very similar. I would say the physical pain has come from my back. I had like a terrible chair. So I finally got a standing desk, and that made it everything slightly easier. Like working from home one day from a not great chair was okay, but doing it like for 5 days, 8 hours a day, it was a bit too much. But in terms of the tools, yeah, I feel I still miss being in the office and being able to just talk to my colleagues right there and says, hey, let's go and grab a coffee or a tea and talk about this problem or whatever. Or I just don't know how to this Hive query, where's the table that I should just get. But now, I mean, it's still easy. You can just do it on Slack, but I kind of miss the 3D people. That's pretty much.
You have an avatar sitting there in your, in your kitchen.
And I'm super privileged in the sense that I live in a place that I live with my partner. I have someone to talk to. We don't have kids, so it's not too distracting. I know a lot of my friends who are struggling with that, working from home. So in that sense, we're like super lucky, and especially that we can keep our jobs going.
And is the perspective for you, Jennifer, different? You know, in that you're mostly managing engineers? Like how does that change the dynamic for you, especially as it relates to collaboration and day in the life?
Sure. So I actually think, and this is something that I strongly believe in, like for all the time I've spent as a manager, is that the ability of working from home is almost like central to, I mean, it's like a dream situation for an IC, let's be honest, right? I mean, so I think, and I've always been trying really hard to support, even before COVID, to support the fact that people can work from home, can have like no meeting days, can, you know, like have some free time where nobody's going to disturb them and so forth and so on, like regardless of whether they are in the office or not. I think the challenge has always been that if you want to bring the freedom to people to just do their best work in any environment, because like as we know, people coding want to have like complete silence and they need a couple of hours where they can just focus on whatever they're building, basically pushes the burden of the responsibility onto the manager, because it means you have to be available anytime, right? I mean, so it's basically like maybe the time where I truly understood what that meant is like when I was managing a team of data scientists at Atlassian, and part of the team was in Sydney and part of the team was in California. And so basically like the ability of saying like, look, you can work whenever you want, wherever you want, I'm available for you whenever you have questions, means that sometimes I'm gonna have to pick up the phone at like 11 p.m. or something like that, right? And I think now it's actually not that much different, because it's like you're like enabling people to do the best that they can, knowing that it's super important to be available whenever they need it. Now, something that's been a challenge for us, which I never truly thought about before, is that we're really in a space where we're inventing new technology, which means brainstorming is really at the core of everything we're doing. And it's not as simple as to say like, look, check out this paper, implement this paper, and I'll talk to you next week, right? So it's like basically like and in fact, we had a culture in the office where we would spend a ridiculous amount of time like whiteboarding, brainstorming together, and like stealing the the pen from each other. It's like, no, this is not the distribution that what the distribution would like, and so forth and so on. So this is something that I feel is like been a challenge to reproduce given the current setting. And in fact, I'll tell you something funny. So when we moved to our new offices, like the ones we're currently occupying back in September, like we had a ridiculous amount of time without a conference table. So I don't know if you realize that, but when you order a conference table, it takes a ridiculous amount of time to get there. So we had a meeting room that was completely empty. There was no whiteboard, there was no chairs, no conference table, no anything. And we were starting to hire people, right? And so basically like we ended up having like this weird type of interview, which I ended up calling like the carpet interviews, where everybody would sit on the floor and just try to talk about a very tough topic without using a whiteboard. And I actually told my team, is like I told my team, like whoever passes and is able to explain to me a full algorithm without even like whiteboarding anything, I hire that person. And so we did just that, and somehow it's still helping, because the people who passed the interview in these conditions are actually the ones who are doing a good job today, right? I mean, so and then they can basically like explain to me like without the need of a whiteboard what they're working on. So I definitely adopting that in the long term. There's always going to be like a carpet interview in the future.
Now you can do it remotely from one carpet to the other.
I know, right?
Have you found any good tooling for supporting that the brainstorming piece, especially?
You have a couple of like open source like like stuff like you can like so you have to whiteboard, but with your mouse it's not super easy. So some of my employees are actually using their iPads or whatever. I've had people like write on a sheet of paper and just like like stick it up in front of the camera. So it still manages itself. It's just like probably like the thing I miss the most is like basically like, no, I disagree with you. This should not be modeled this way or whatever.
And that's especially hard to do if you're doing like email or Slack communication, where
absolutely.
It's hard to get the tone right, you know. Rajan, is this different or the same from your experience? I know you're, NVIDIA has slightly different resources than Alectio at this point in time, so maybe differences there, but has being remote from your team impacted you very much?
Not maybe I would not say that too much, but there's some different aspects. Of course, we have to. I think to Jennifer's point, that whiteboarding is something that's clearly missing. At least I don't know, like some really good tool that could enable that. We work off Slack and Teams and WebEx and Zoom every day, at work. Even before COVID. and we are continuing to do that. I was just thinking that, like we have all these tools, so, that's making life still a little bit easier, in this difficult situation. We use Slack quite extensively, we can share code snippets, and that makes, just teamwork a little bit easier. I think to Uri's point, like having ergonomic setup at home, it's like really important. Having like a nice table setup, a nice monitor, a nice keyboard, a nice mouse, and, because I've worked before, just on my laptop as well, my Mac, and, when you code all day, it's really important to, I think, have a nice setup at home. So similar to what you may have at work as well, right? Yeah, I think I've lived on both East Coast and West Coast, and right now I'm on the West Coast. Typically, I would, me and the team would spend time, writing code, developing models. I think one I can say maybe a nice thing is that maybe living in the Bay Area, the commute times are usually really long, and working from home for everybody, so hopefully that cuts it down. And so, that maybe just gives us more time to, learn and read papers or blogs, just, learn new concepts, improve as a team.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess the other thing that could help is having a few GPUs at your home office as well, right? Which makes me, I think for the last session, I'd love to do a round robin, given that we're pretty short in time, on the operational side of things, like operational time management, into the modeling itself. And I'd love to hear how, starting with you, Rajan, how you approach, if there are any challenges for you, or whether it's seamless. And if it's seamless, we can just move on. But to actually, run training jobs, tuning jobs, do feature engineering, anything that you're doing related to your modeling, or any of the tooling that you provide to support those efforts. I'm imagining a lot of the modeling is still going on, maybe is accelerated for certain projects while this is ongoing. So I'd just love to hear operationally and from a time management perspective, if there are any challenges there and how you're addressing those.
Yeah, I mean, I feel really fortunate, working for NVIDIA, that we have these, big internal clusters with GPUs that we can use for training, deployment. We use containers on those clusters, Docker containers that make it really easy to just build maybe on a workstation and take it to a big server to train on an 8 GPU or a 16 GPU machine. And sometimes we would use cloud environments, public cloud environments as well. My team specifically works closely with our partners and customers in consumer internet space. So many times we are trying to create demos that would work in their environment. So, be it a public, specific public cloud vendor. From the tooling perspective, there is a few tools that maybe I can highlight. Folks who are using TensorFlow. It's kind of like a hidden tool sometimes. On the newest generation of GPUs, we had this low precision computation feature, which really speeds up your training workflow at least 2x, if not more, maybe 3x in some cases. And that's like significant training time reduction as well as cost savings, when you're running on cloud. So I think that's super helpful. From folks who are running, creating models in scikit-learn or doing data preprocessing using pandas. We have accelerated workflows for those as well using GPUs. Sometimes, preprocessing takes majority of time compared to training, right? We think of training as taking the most time, but sometimes just data loading and preprocessing takes a lot of time. So there's been a lot of effort to accelerate that.
It is the same, going back around, Jennifer, for you in this context as well. And we're gonna run over a few minutes. If you have to drop off, go for it. But we'll continue recording, and we'll share any insights afterward via email as well.
So for us, it's an interesting situation. So we're really like we have like some sort of like hybrid like architecture. So basically like we're technically a meta learning company. So our models perform on top of other models. So again, like kind of like a little bit what you guys are doing. So the customer models run where they are currently are. So it's actually not our problem if you know like like usually they run that on prem or whatever. On our side, so we actually we have a lot of like of our own GPUs, because if we had to do everything on the cloud, that would be incredibly expensive for us. And so originally, like since the company is pretty young, I still remember the early days when I had the GPU machines in my garage, right? And so at some point, unfortunately, you have to have like a specific like a fire insurance if you want to have more than a certain number of GPUs. So I had to migrate everything to the office, which I kind of regret right now, because our GPU machines are actually pretty finicky, and every now and then they just disconnect, right? I mean, and so it's just like people are trying to SSH, and then it's like, okay, it's down. Somebody's gonna have to go to the office to restart it, right? And so the funny story was like, so we do like many other teams, we do Scrum, and so for every demo meeting, I used to have this role before COVID that whoever would run overtime would owe the rest of the team breakfast for the next week. And so now it's converted to like whoever goes overtime is like is supposed to go switch on the GPU machine if it gets switched off for the following week. So
that's awesome. That's so good. I love it. Urdi, is that similar with your experience? Do you have any? Are you pretty much same environment as you would be if you're in the office, or are there any operational challenges?
Yeah, in terms of coding and the actual work with my computer, it's the same. Nothing has really changed. We have everything in the cloud, so it's yeah, it's very seamless in that aspect. Yeah, the main challenge is like what I think Maria was talking about before. Like in Slack, sometimes somebody has sorry, in Slack, on Zoom, somebody has like a little problem. They get disconnected. They have like some people talk over other people. That's the major challenge that I've been finding. Also, like from working from home, like finding the difference between working and non-working. Like it's so easy to just get like Jennifer was talking about, like, oh my God, you have to be like a little bit more, have like a better schedule, right? Like at least that's what's happening to me, trying to maintain like some sanity in my head. But yeah, in terms of job, it's just the same. It's not too different.
And Maria, same for you, or a little bit different on your end, especially building on the time management piece if there's no operational challenges for you?
Yeah, operational challenge is definitely not like everything is VPN and cloud. So we just select GPU count and then we work on it. I think on time management, I think this is a challenge, especially when I started first being remote. It's easy to go down a rabbit hole if you don't have anyone to do like a reality check. And I would like spend hours like micro optimizing models and trying this other thing, even though like getting a way to like make time boxing like very conscious and like make sure like you won't go down a lot of rabbit holes, especially for folks like that have that personality, like was a very big challenge for me. When you're doing modeling, that might be even like there is no stop essentially. So yeah, that was a big challenge. I had like actually blocking parts in my calendar to fix it, where I would just like set reminders and had to like, by then, whatever you have, like you're going to show it to folks. So that was probably more of a challenge first.
And that helps your feedback cycles be more iterative. And yeah, it makes sense. Toby, I had actually passed you up on the last question. So why don't you give us a gist? You can provide meta commentary on the conversation so far, and love to hear you build on any points that folks made, or your general take on some of what's been said and whether your experience is different.
No, I think a lot of the things that have been said makes a lot of sense. I think one of the greatest advantage of working remote, at least in my opinion, is that when you're in the office, it's so easy to just go to someone and tap that person on the shoulder and be like, hey, I have this question, a question which you haven't really thought through. Whereas when you're remote, you have to force yourself to put your questions down in writing and actually start to think about them before you ask. Because if you don't have thought deeply about the question, it's so hard to ask someone on Slack. So for me personally, I find that when people are remote, the things they are asking for you become more thoughtful and easier to execute on. So with everyone remote, I think a lot of people just become more efficient, and especially with the commute time as well. But I think the fact that people have to be more thoughtful about their asks is a huge improvement for in a lot of different ways. And I think that's my main feedback on the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And so in a weird way, it actually forces you to adopt new practices that actually contribute to, I guess, better formulated problems in this case, but that can actually help your overall workflow as well, and actually help collaboration too. Do you have anything to add in terms of tooling that you prefer, or is it all pretty much the same for you?
I would say the thing with the desk and the mouse and keyboard is pretty important. I've been working out of my kitchen table and other tables for the past almost year. I do a lot of yoga these days to prevent getting a sore back. So yeah, it's definitely a pain, but it's okay. You get used to it, and the sloppy programming style is it's growing on you, I would say.
I guess to that end, building on that theme of kind of from the time management angle, balance, and then from the kind of physical plus mental health side, how you actually break up your day. I'd love to end with everyone just sharing what your favorite activity is that you do every day to just generally break up the workday. Especially in these times, it can be hard to do, but I'd love to hear, what your thing is, what you prefer to do to break up the day that's non-work related, that adds balance to your day. So why don't we go back around the horn, Toby, starting with you.
So I live right on the edge of the ocean. So I spend 3 hours a day with my wife and my puppy and the dog, either surfing or hanging out. And that's probably how I keep my sanity. It works pretty well.
That sounds pretty nice, actually. I may come down there with you.
Sure.
Maria,
keep your distance.
Yeah, 6 feet apart, of course. Maria, how about you?
I try to always work out before I start work, so that's not middle of the day, but at least 45 minutes in the morning before starting work. These days I have a lot of consecutive meetings, so sometimes I just force meetings to start like 5 past, so that at least I have a chance to like take a walk around the apartment and get some air, maybe like from the window. Mm-hmm. I also do like long night walks. And I like, if I have time, like split my day and maybe like spend another 40 minutes in between, like during lunchtime, to cook something and just like get my mind off.
That's nice. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I've been doing that a little bit myself. I like that breakup. Odi, yourself, anything there?
I try to play guitar. I've been playing a lot of guitar lately. And yeah, that helps me a lot. And I also try to go.
If we knew we could have had you play for this segment.
And I try to go to the Oakland Redwoods Regional to do some hikes whenever I can. It's super close to where I live, and it really helps me to disconnect, to be outside.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Jennifer, how about you?
So I mean, for me, like the big thing that it helps me save my sanity these days is so I actually have 2 young daughters, and my husband is a stay-at-home dad. So usually when I used to go to the office, I would sometimes leave before the girls were even awake or whatever, and sometimes come back after they were in bed, right? I mean, it happened to me sometimes I would go like 48 hours without seeing any of them, and so now we grab lunch together. I can play with them in between meetings and stuff. So that's been really, really nice. The other thing is so I've this is a passion of mine, which I have always hidden from everybody because it used not to be popular, but I've always been a jigsaw puzzle freak. So I have hundreds of jigsaw puzzles. It's always helped me quiet my mind and so forth and so on. And so somehow it became very popular. I don't know if you're aware of that, but Ravensburger, one of the brands that makes a puzzle, suddenly got a boost in sales, etc. So I guess it doesn't make me look like a freak anymore. So I can probably share that now. So yeah, I still keep doing the same thing.
That's awesome. Yeah, that has become quite the trend. I love that though.
I was pre-trend, right? I mean,
yeah. You made it a trend is what I like to believe personally. Rajan, how about you?
Yeah, for me, I've been time boxing my activities with a calendar blocks helps quite a bit, because I also sometimes have the tendency to really go deep into some topics, and in some cases, I want to time box. Taking breaks, definitely a big thing, especially working from home. Workout, when possible, typically early in the morning. That usually helps. I'm a huge tea and coffee believer as well, so in the morning before starting my day and in the middle of the day, this helps me, just get back, focus. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, great. I know we're already 10 minutes over. I appreciate each of you taking the extra time. And I appreciate you being guinea pigs alongside us in this, our first stab at this sort of event. I'll personally say I've had fun, even though we had to work through some logistical troubles. I've also learned that we should block off more time so we can have more to share with everyone. So those are good problems to have. Not the logistical problems. The latter is a good problem to have, because I think that you guys had a lot of interesting things to say. And I think we could have gone much deeper on a lot of those, but I appreciate you going through some of those for everyone here. And I hope you join us in some of our future sessions where we try to bring people together, especially in times like these, to share some thoughts that they have, and generally give people additional faces to interact with while they're all remote from each other. So appreciate your time. And I will take any questions that we got off chat and answer them directly, given that we're so far over. So thanks in general, everyone. And until next time, appreciate it, and keep modeling out there.